It's time to have your say. Welcome back to the Q&A. AskSCW is back answering your questions in the Wrestle community on WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, and much, much more. We'll be kicking off straight after this. So today on AskSCW, we're going to be talking about WrestleMania, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. Who is going to walk away from the champion versus champion, winner takes all? Did Brock need to destroy more or less the entire male roster at Elimination Chamber? Why are we not getting Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania this year? And also, Cody Rhodes, how should he be booked if he goes back to WWE? Will he go back to WWE? A big talking point. And as well as that, we're talking about best storyline in wrestling right now. And of course, Jay White turning on G.O.D. at No Surrender. So lots of things to be excited about here today. But if you want to be involved on the next episode of AskSCW, drop your question in the comments below with the hashtag AskSCW, or you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. All should be coming up on your screen right about now. But without further ado, let's get on with our first question this week. And it comes from Mike, a Tanhabs Mike, who says, so much conflicting reports about Cody Rhodes. Where does Rhodes end up and how would you book Rhodes? Talk about a hot topic to start things off. Cody Rhodes is the story that just won't go away in the last 7 days. It is the hottest topic in all of professional wrestling right now. And like you say, the big question is, with all the rumours, where is Cody going to end up? Because, well, 1% of me still believes it can be a work. We got the announcement from Tony Khan, we got the announcement from Cody, and also, Brandy left the company as well, making her announcement. But, AEW Revolution is going to be in Orlando in a week on Sunday or something like this. And Cody, this past Saturday, has been spotted in Orlando. Now, is it for the fact that we're being worked, or is he at the WWE PC? Because, well, Cody's a sort of guy that deep down wants to make a difference to the business. He's done that by betting on himself with All In, with All Elite Wrestling as well. And now, he's come away from that. You turn around and say, well, maybe he could go to like NWA. He was a former world champion there. Maybe he could take another promotion and build them up further. That seems to be the Cody way. Cody can make his own direction. He doesn't like to take orders. But at the same time, if Cody wants to be paid the big bucks, then there's only one place to go if you're not going to be in AEW, and that is to WWE. And he has said previously that it is a special place in his heart. So I do believe that Cody is going to go to WWE. Now, I didn't believe he'd turn up at Elimination Chamber, but how and where should he come in? To answer Cherry Jerry's question, does Cody Rhodes have a 141 2/3% chance on showing up at WrestleMania? Despite the Scott Steiner maths, my answer is yes. Although I do believe there is a chance he could show up before. There's always a chance maybe they could do it the night after WrestleMania. A lot of WWE stories, for the new year, start the night after. But for me, Cody is free to go where he wants and compete now. Cody would be a big deal, and WWE will probably treat it as an asset, getting someone that was an EVP from AEW. So I think that they'll want to showcase that in front of the biggest audience possible. And in a state like Texas, which of course has a lot of history with his father, the All-American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and of course we've got the Dusty Cup going on with NXT right now. We've had the Creed brothers win the men's, the women's is about to commence as well. There's a lot of reason of why Cody Rhodes could and should turn up in WWE now. Now, a number of ideas of how Cody could come in, and I've got a few of them on the top of my head. Of course, he's meant to be now the American Nightmare. If he can keep that moniker, can keep that music as well. Wouldn't it be fun if he actually answered an open challenge for the United States Championship for Damian Priest? Just a fun little idea. Certainly, what about an idea of taking over NXT? Just like Dusty was there in charge with what was going on down there, Cody could be the hot shot. The guy could almost be taking the charge of getting NXT to go back into a war against AEW to try and bring it up. That would be quite fascinating in itself. Now, if you believe the rumor mill at the moment, his WrestleMania rumored opponent is potentially Seth Rollins. That feels like a big time match, and like I say, I think WrestleMania is the likely one, perhaps going on the Raw brand. If it's Seth Rollins, then I can see Cody being amongst that. It's a big match, it's the sort of thing he'd want to be involved with, and could probably push him in and towards the upper mid-card, if not towards the main event picture coming out on the other side. For me, other ideas I could throw out just very quickly, him doing one of those impassionate promos, saying that he's been a star before, he's been dashing before, but now he's here, he wants to emulate his father and show that he can be that world champion. He's gone and proven himself everywhere else. Now the only place left to prove himself is WWE. Have someone like Vince McMahon come out and say, look, yeah, we brought you back, but I didn't actually pitch you being all these things you've just said. You know, you like you said, you're a Rhodes, you're a great hand, you're a great to have on the card, but we didn't picture you being the guy that's going to take on a Roman Reigns or a Brock Lesnar. We have you against someone else on the card, and perhaps we can have that point then when it's kind of like Rhodes versus McMahon, but kind of like having Austin Theory take that spot and have Cody versus Austin Theory at WrestleMania. Could be a fun match, could be just a placeholder to start, because Austin Theory is having, you know, he's a mid-carder at this particular point, but he's been thrown in these big matches, big match after big match. I expect him to have a big match at WrestleMania as well. The last idea that I've had, and this is probably the most fantasy booking of the lot, because literally I don't think it will ever happen, but if Cody wants to come in as a heel, which again I don't think he would want to do, but could you imagine if he was like, you know, not meant to be there, kind of like an NWO style storyline where Cody kind of comes in and, you know, attacks people, and it's like, whoa, what is he doing here? He shouldn't be here. Isn't he coming from somewhere else? We remember him from before, but he was from that other company now. Now, you're not going to want to reference AEW, although Sami Zayn did all those years ago as well, but you can have Cody kind of just come in, attack people, and then when he gets a chance to talk and say he's not alone, he's maybe got other people, can tease that idea. Is it other people defecting from All Elite Wrestling? Or is it some people in and amongst the WWE roster? Maybe you can have, like where Rhodes, like I said, it's kind of a big name in wrestling, sort of legacy and history. Of course, I mentioned the word legacy. He was a part of a group called Legacy with Randy Orton. Maybe you can start a stable, if you want, with people in like that. Someone like a Randy Orton, you grab a Charlotte Flair and you make this sort of mega stable, you know, together all these sort of, you know, rich of names of wrestling and history and stuff like that. But hey, that's a real fantasy booking idea. I do not expect anything like that to happen in WWE. But the Seth Rollins idea, even though I can't necessarily think of a great story for it necessarily right now, I certainly think it could be quite fun to watch a match. I would be keen on seeing on WrestleMania, seeing what they do have on the table for it. One more Cody question for you now, coming from Lorenzo Carrillo, saying, if WWE wants to sign Cody, does Vince and company have something to prove with this signing for future ex-AEW to make the jump? Well, this is the other way to book Cody Rhodes. You need to book this guy strong if he's coming in. Like I say, WWE have to treat this as a big deal. You've got an EVP from your main competitor, because, alright, WWE is still head and shoulders above every other company going, but to get an EVP from AEW, one of the people that founded this company to begin with, to come into your company, this could set a precedent. Like you say, there could be other people keeping an eye out, because while Cody's contract wasn't extended by Tony Khan, other ones were. Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, they were given, what, another year or 2 year extension. There will come a point where if they're not happy or feel themselves, well, maybe we want that big payday before we finish off, they may look and see how things are going for Cody over the other side. Talk about other sort of ones, perhaps the up-and-comers. Talk about the four pillars. What about talking to someone like MJF? He's already said about the bidding war of 2024. If you don't think he's keeping his options open, well, you're kidding yourself, because I'm pretty sure MJF, in my opinion, in AEW, needs to be pushed to the moon this year to become the world champion, because if it comes to a certain point to next year, it could be a case of his contract is coming up, then he's the world champion, and then you could be in a bit of a dilemma, because if WWE can then price him away, you're pricing away the world champion from the other company. So my personal opinion, MJF needs to be made a big deal this year, but certainly people like that, Jade Cargill, another one, people that may be looking there and thinking, all these mid-carders that are not happy, like potentially a Brian Cage, someone like that, and not being used to their full potential, they're all going to look at this and say, can I make the jump over? Because right now, you would think an AEW talent would go over the other side and would just be absolutely annihilated in WWE, would end up in the catering crew very, very quickly, and just be made a pure example of. This is an excuse for WWE to take Cody in and say, no, we're not going to do that. You can be a big deal and you can thrive under our company. It's always this place over the other place. Otherwise, it's just going to encourage the same thing as what a lot of people leaving WWE think, which is, well, the grass is actually greener in AEW, and it makes WWE seem less appealing unless you want the big payday. Let's move on to WrestleMania 38, champion versus champion, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. OV from the HHW show saying, will Roman Reigns leave WrestleMania with both titles? Yes. Next question. No, I'll give a bit more definite. Yeah, there's no other way I can see personally than Roman Reigns winning. Of course, Brock Lesnar has been as almost full-time as can be since SummerSlam last year, but I do believe Brock is still meant to be on a part-time deal with WWE. I can see him taking a break after WrestleMania up until perhaps when we get to Money in the Bank SummerSlam season for 2022. So for that reason, I do expect Roman Reigns to walk away with both championships, winner takes all at WrestleMania 38. I'm sticking that prediction out nice and early, and I don't think I'm alone thinking that one either. Next question comes from Jamie Holmes now saying, your thoughts on the title versus title match at WrestleMania? For Jamie, it's a no-win scenario. If Brock wins, we'll be without a world champion for months at a time. If Roman Reigns wins, one brand is without a champion unless wrestlers can brand jump. Great question, this one, but from my understanding, I don't think, wrestlers are going to need to jump brands going forward, because if Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, well, it's winner take all, whichever one walks away with both belts after WrestleMania 38 will be on both shows. So it'll be Roman that would go to Raw, it'll be Brock, who's kind of already on both shows already, but would be on Raw and SmackDown as well. So it would be that sort of case scenario. So we could even get a scenario very similar to Becky Lynch when she became Becky Two Belts after WrestleMania 35. And of course, that could also open up its own issues going forward. What happens is only one championship defended on a premium live event going forward per month. So we see, rather than the 30 days, it's kind of like, well, maybe Roman needs to defend the Raw WWE Championship on Raw, and then it comes to the Universal title at the Premium Live event, or vice versa. Or do we get a scenario where Roman has to have two matches in one night? I mean, that could lead to some overexposure with, the Tribal Chief, head of the table, being on 5 hours of WWE weekly TV. Or perhaps if the Beast is to win the championship and is to stick around, is it too much fun of a Brock Lesnar than what we're getting? And I'm totally loving the Brock character in 2022. But still, there can't be too much of a good thing. Maybe we shouldn't have so much of it. Maybe this should be on one show. In my personal opinion, I would have preferred that someone else had won the chamber and someone else would have had the opportunity to be involved at the championship match of WrestleMania, as we have separate shows. But of course, it does have that big fight feel as well. It does feel like that this is something mega, something special. It does come with its other flaws, mainly due to the rest of the other male roster, but I'll be going into that in the following question. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's one of those scenarios. I think that Roman Reigns, if we look at it how I think Roman Reigns is going to win both championships, he is the biggest thing in wrestling right now. He is the biggest deal. He will probably help ratings on the side of things. It's going to help both TV networks as well, because both of them are going to want Roman Reigns on their channel, so that enters that. Is it the first step towards the end of the brand split? Because let's be fair, both rosters now are a lot smaller than what they were 6 months ago or a year ago. I mean, think about the amount of talent that's been released. We probably are taking the first steps to having where everyone is under one roof again. But again, that can bring its own dangers as well, because at the moment, everybody is getting TV time that's on Raw or SmackDown. You'll have pretty much then halved again, probably, if you were to do that, and everyone will just be overexposed each and every week. So there is a danger of how it's going to work out and how it will play out, but I personally believe that it'll be that Roman will win, will be on Raw and SmackDown. Hopefully will not get overexposed in the meantime. Hopefully they'll find a creative way to defend both championships, and hopefully will give us some fresh matches that we thought perhaps we will get a chance to see with the Tribal Chief. Heel Deeds 123 of our next question now. What did you make of the booking of the two chambers? Should Brock be testing through 4 guys that when one of them, Seth, has beaten him clean in the past and another, AJ, took him to the limit at Survivor Series? Well, let's talk about that first then, shall we, with the situation of Brock Lesnar, because yes, it was darn entertaining. Watch Brock just, smash through the chamber, apparently going off script to do so as well, and just completely destroy everyone in his way, and a very entertaining 5 minutes of him and Austin Theory, the way that was closed off of the Elimination Chamber. But yeah, it really did damage the status of this, entire men's division that are meant to be going for the WWE Championship, because, well, no one seemed to be anywhere close to Brock's level. And to be honest, I think one of the main issues that I have with this is that Brock doesn't need it, first off, and 2, Brock is going to be that part-timer again very, very soon. You've destroyed everyone that's going to be there, 52 weeks a year for someone that's not going to be there all the time. But ultimately, as I said, this is really just to put Roman and put him that much bigger. So in a way, it's kind of like, it is one of your full-time performers, but yeah, only one match seems to matter going to WrestleMania. I don't like that. I want to see everyone feel like that it's important, that it's special. It's not going to be like an undercard that doesn't matter and just one match that matters. I want to feel that everything is important on WrestleMania. The only way that WWE can fix that, in my opinion, is that when Roman eventually gets on this pedestal where he's defeated Brock Lesnar, WWE needs to find a way to get other superstars that are on Roman's level. They need to find a way to build up this roster now. I'm not quite sure the ways they're going to do that right now. Like you said, the likes of AJ could take Brock to the limit a few years ago. Now he's getting squashed very quickly, easily by Brock. He can't beat the United States champion Damian Priest, and he lost in less than 5 minutes last week on Raw. He's getting destroyed by Omos as well. Is it time to push new blood towards the top? Should some of those guys be pushed towards the top instead of an AJ Styles? Or do you build AJ up creditable, have him a big WrestleMania win over someone like Edge, and then you can finally get him perhaps back in towards the title picture, just get a bit of momentum back on someone like his side? Same with Seth Rollins. Do you do that? I'm not sure how they're going to play it around. Maybe they need to build stables, new friendships, stuff like that could help to that. So, give something a bit of freshness, difference to these superstars than what they had going into the Elimination Chamber this past Saturday. Of course, there's NXT call-ups. Of course, there's potential signings. I mentioned Cody already, if that is one that can come in. That's a way you can try and freshen things up and put people on Roman's level going forward after this. And speaking of call-ups, the first one that comes to mind is Bron Breakker. It'd be quite interesting to see how he would fare right now if he was put on a Raw or SmackDown after WrestleMania. But of course, lots of different ideas of what they can do. I would turn around and say that Brock didn't need to do that. I'd have preferred to have seen a more equal chamber and Brock just find a way to get through at the end, because, yeah, he's dominant. But look, this is all to make Roman look great at the end of the day. And the things with both chamber matches, I think they got a bit of the Royal Rumble 1995 treatment. But apparently the reasoning for that and why they were the shortest chamber matches in history was mainly due to the fact that they don't want to have super long matches in the climate that they were at this time currently in Jeddah. Apparently it was super, super hot. Think of some of the outfits as well, especially what the ladies were wearing as well. Goodness, they must have been sweating so much being in amongst that heat. But end of the day, that's what they did. It kind of rushed things for me. Stories couldn't really develop for a lot of the other talents, including in the women's match. I didn't think many stories got over in that match. There wasn't time to let things develop properly. So there probably are going to be two chamber matches that I'm not going to be in so much of a rush to go back and watch again. But at the same time, I was kind of thankful that this show wasn't a 4 or 5 hour show. So I suppose there are some benefits to it as well. But yeah, interesting chamber all round this year. Definitely was a lot of talking points coming out. I've talked more in depth about a lot of these topics as well in my Elimination Chamber review, which if you've not had a chance to go and check it out, go and check it out at the end of this video. I'm joined by Jones Chats Wrestling as well, and we have a great discussion for about just around an hour talking about all things Elimination Chamber, how it sort of takes things going into WrestleMania, how things look with the roster, and was a lot of this stuff necessary that was done on this show, because there definitely is arguments for both sides. Bama Slammer Wrestling Podcast of our next question now. Why do you think that WWE isn't having Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania, since we know her shoulders were knocked down for the 3 count when Becky pinned her? Is it because Becky is a heel and Bianca needs a redemption story, or because they don't want us to remember that ever happened? Short answer for this, it's both. WWE don't want us to remember that ending of WrestleMania 35. Of course, it's a shame that it was a slightly botched finish because Ronda's shoulders were meant to be on the mat. So I don't know if that will ever be addressed ever again via WWE. But yes, I think there's a couple of reasons that come down to it. Becky is on Raw, and that redemption story is needed to be done with Bianca Belair, and Ronda Rousey being put on SmackDown. They're always going to favour Fox over USA when it comes to the TV deals. So for that reason, I think that, say both champions were lobbying for the idea of taking on Ronda Rousey at this year's WrestleMania, I think as Charlotte is on SmackDown, she probably won the potential argument, and WWE thought, we'll do that match because that's the match they wanted to originally do at WrestleMania 35 anyway. Becky wasn't supposed to be in the mix. Becky was just that far over that she couldn't be ignored, had to be put in the match and had to go over on the night. That wasn't, I think, how WWE wanted it to go down. So they get to do what they want to do this year. They get to do Charlotte versus Ronda. They're pleasing Fox. They're doing things on the SmackDown side, and probably look then to see and think of it on the other side. Bianca gets her redemption story, which in my opinion probably is the right thing at this point. You can get her to defeat Becky Lynch. Probably when it comes around to draft time, yeah, expect Becky, expect as well Seth Rollins to be potentially drafted over the SmackDown. That's something that could happen, because then they're on the Fox station, and then you can start building from a heel Becky Lynch into a babyface, perhaps Becky Lynch, because I'm sure Ronda is probably going to turn heel at some point over this next time, even though she's probably meant to be the babyface right now against Charlotte Flair. I can't see that lasting when it becomes Ronda versus Becky. I just don't think fans will take to it, and I hope WWE are smart enough not to insult our intelligence too much, although probably seen it happen before. But yeah, expect Becky at that point maybe to win the Rumble or do something like that to build herself and Ronda for WrestleMania next year, which of course, at that point, it's the Hollywood WrestleMania once again, which I'm sure they're going to want to make it a big time deal as possible. So even though it feels like, yeah, why are we waiting longer for this match? I can see the logic of why they've made the decisions they've made, but certainly it's still a match I'm excited to see, want to see, hope you do as well, and hopefully we'll get to see it at next year's WrestleMania. The belief is Ronda Rousey is going to be in for the next 2 Manias, so there is one more WrestleMania, and of course there is a calendar year to do these big matches in between with other wrestlers with Ronda as well. So hopefully we get to see Ronda against the best of the crop during 2022, and we can finally get to see Ronda versus Becky one-on-one at WrestleMania 39, because I'm pretty sure they want to do it, and we definitely want to see it. Next question comes from Jonesy Chats Wrestling. Why is WWE using Goldberg whilst having lost Keith Lee, Adam Cole, Malachi Black and Miro to All Elite Wrestling? The short and simple answer to this one, sadly, and this is crazy, I know, Vince McMahon and co, they don't know how to book those talents. They didn't know how to use them properly. That's why they didn't see any star power, anything in them. They let them go, or contracts run out, and they decided to go over to somewhere different. You know, Keith Lee didn't see anything in. Malachi Black, Miro, all got released. Adam Cole, guess his contracts, did run out, and he chose to go the other side. But if you believe those rumors, Adam Cole was wanting to be a manager of Raw SmackDown. Of course he was going to jump to All Elite Wrestling. He was going to go off and be a pro wrestler. That's what Adam Cole does best. It's him being Adam Cole baby, not Adam Cole the manager. No, that's not how it works. So this is the reason why. And Goldberg, well, they know how to use Goldberg, but funny little fact, in my opinion, this is an objective opinion here, they're going off a star that was made in 1997, 1998 from WCW. It's not the star they made to begin with. When they brought him in from 2003 to 2004, in my opinion, I thought that he was quite lackluster with Goldberg. They didn't use him properly. Didn't use Goldberg to his strengths. He's used more to his strengths in his most recent run of the last few years, but that's mainly because Goldberg probably realises he can't go for 15, 20-minute matches. It has to be 6-minute matches at maximum, which is why we get Spear, Jackhammer. This is what we were used to seeing in WCW, that build his strengths up. So that's pretty much what it comes down to. And Goldberg, like I say, he is one of them big stars from the hottest era of wrestling. These other superstars were up-and-comers being built up from NXT, and they've just been perhaps given misdirections and bad booking when it came to Raw, SmackDown, when they were called up. You imagine if Triple H was in charge, I'm sure things would have been a lot different. Because like you say, you see those people in NXT, they all thrived, they were all champions, they all did pretty darn well. Minus Miro, of course, I don't think he was a champion in NXT, but certainly did pretty darn well for the first year or 2 years that he was called up to Raw, SmackDown. But then, once they gave up on Rusev Day, they just completely let him fade away, which is, it's criminal when you think of it, because all of them have done great things in All Elite Wrestling, and I'm speaking Keith Lee including that, and Keith Lee's only had one real appearance so far. So, they seem to know an idea of how to push and build and use these superstars. WWE, not quite sure how to build and use superstars right now. They seem struggling with it, so they seem to go with what they know instead. Mr. AEW with our next question now. With so much going on in different wrestling companies, which wrestling company has the best storyline so far? Is it Impact's Bullet Club, or AEW, or SmackDown, or Raw? Really fun question, this one. Like you said, there's so much going on. It's only February, for goodness sakes, in 2022. So much is going on. But to give my personal favourite, and I'm really struggling to go with what I think is the top storyline in wrestling right now, but I think just pips it right now, is CM Punk and MJF. I do love the way that's been put together from start to finish. The verbal exchanges, the way that CM Punk has, gone through every member of the Pinnacle. They went through the 6-man tag where there was hardly any physical altercation at all between Punk and MJF in that match, to when they had the match in Chicago, CM Punk losing for the first time in AEW in his hometown as well. It was a bold, brave move from Tony Khan and co, and I think it paid off perfectly. The way they've done things since now to build the match up for the dog collar match at Revolution, I think it's been done to absolute perfection. So I really, really enjoyed that storyline. I think it just might be the best one right now, but very close second for me. I love Eddie Edwards turning on Team Impact there, to be with Honor No More. Shout out to Jamie Holmes, who actually said that in a previous Q&A, literally after that storyline had just started as well, saying could that be something that could happen. Definitely thought there was an idea of it when he'd mentioned it, and certainly have gone on to see that storyline since, and thought Jamie was definitely on the money from minute one with it, and definitely seeing it play out as it did, it was absolute perfection. But you mentioned Bullet Club, I did not see that one coming at all. Goodness, when they take people out Bullet Club, it is brutal, and I can say that G.O.D, it was done in a brutal fashion. We'll be talking about more of that in the next question. To just quickly touch on WWE's probably best right now, I actually enjoy what they're doing with Alpha Academy. I think Chad Gable is probably the standout of 2022 at the moment. He's actually becoming a bit of a breakout star, saying WWE are pushing people, but Chad Gable is getting more TV time. I'm enjoying the Alpha Academy and their work. So yeah, long may that continue. I hope that Chad gets a good spot on WrestleMania. Hopefully the Alpha Academy are still Raw Tag Team Champions and perhaps can defend and maybe successfully defend those championships, because I like what they're doing at the moment, and I don't expect the RK Bro storyline they've got going on to go all the way to WrestleMania, but certainly that's probably been my favourite storyline of 2022 so far in WWE. Of course, there's been lots going on with Brock Lesnar that has been interesting, but I do think it has had some damage to over the roster, which I've already explained in this video, as well as doing some good stuff as well. Steve Silvervanet's question for us now with G.O.D out of Bullet Club, where do you think they will end up? Fascinating this, isn't it? I really did not see this coming, as I mentioned in the last question, and it opens a whole new door of possibilities because they've been kicked out of Bullet Club. What does it mean? Are they done with New Japan and they're going to go off and do something in perhaps AEW or WWE or stay in Impact Wrestling? I'm not quite sure. Surely it has to be like a rematch or something, because the Good Brothers seem to be now aligned with Jay White and Chris Bay. I don't know the fallout from this. I know that the tapings are going on right now in New Orleans, but I'm not one to read spoilers and don't like to know spoilers if I can help it. Gossip, a little bit different if it's something that, you know, or maybe this could be happening, or this, we think this has an idea or something, but something concrete that's happened, I tend to not keep an eye on it. I like to see it play out on my TV screen. So I don't know what the fallout's going to be from it, but if it was me right now and how I look at it, surely G.O.D would want to go after the Good Brothers and try and win those titles, not being a part of Bullet Club. Maybe it could be an example of where we could get G.O.D maybe have their own version of the Bullet Club. Maybe the Bullet Club splits and people pick their side, almost like NWO back in the day with the Black and White and the Wolfpack. Maybe we're getting our Wolfpack variation of the Bullet Club in 2022. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. I think that could be a quite fun storyline to play out. I mean, one thing is for sure, with Bullet Club and stuff like that, we're seeing Jay White and people like that showing up in All Elite Wrestling and Impact and stuff. Maybe Bullet Club is going to start having more of an American influence once again. Of course, when it was in the Ring of Honor days, you know, when you look with Adam Cole, the Young Bucks, if it was Marty Scurll at the time, Hangman Page, you know, all those were kind of like the Ring of Honor variation, and Cody as well was a part of that. Been a big talking point of this video already, Cody, but he gets mentioned once again. But you know, they were a big part of that Bullet Club at that point, and they'd go off to New Japan and make their appearances. Maybe we're going to start getting to a point where we can start doing that stuff again in the world. Maybe things are easing up restrictions. Maybe it's going to be a more international Bullet Club once again. There's certainly different variations of prospects that could happen. I'm very excited to see where that storyline will go next. I'm intrigued what people think will happen next with G.O.D in the comments below. As of course, like I said, I'd be very interested in seeing them in another company. I'd love to actually see them against the Usos one day. That'd be a particularly dream match that I would really be down for seeing. But personally for me, I'm not sure it would ever happen, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I mean, in the short term, G.O.D surely got to remain in Impact. They're still on their website. They've got to look for that rematch, going for the tag titles, and knowing now that they've not got Bullet Club watching their back. FAF Wrestling with the next question now. A little early for this one, but who do you see winning the Owen Hart Memorial Tournament? Very difficult question, this one. Tony Khan might have added another 15 wrestlers to the roster by the time the tournament actually starts, so who knows at this point. But no, seriously, all jokes aside, I'd like to see two bits of criteria perhaps go into the winner for the men's and the women's. Certainly someone that is ready to go to the next level in All Elite Wrestling, I think, is perhaps the most important thing. I think would be a nice touch if there was a Canadian winner as well in amongst one or both of the tournaments. So for me personally, that's what I'd like to see. Perhaps there's someone like Josh Alexander. Of course, he's currently out of contract right now, is a free agent. If he doesn't sign with Impact, was to come to AEW, for example, he would be someone I'd like to see go and win it. But looking at the current rosters, it's very difficult to say. If we were going Canadian wrestlers, Ethan Page and Christian Cage would be quite cool to see from the men's side. From the women's side, the Bunny would be quite cool to see. But to go with actual winners, let's go with Daniel Garcia for the men, because I think it's going to be a great standout for the future. Great technical wrestler as well. Very similar sort of aspect to how Owen was in the ring. For the women's side, a submission style wrestler, Serena Deeb, definitely more experienced, but certainly, you know, she's been on an absolute tear recently with what she's been doing in AEW. So would like to see that. And certainly, I'd like to see the sharpshooter used in amongst this tournament, perhaps for someone to win it as well. I think that'd be a cool touch. And last question this week coming from Supersonic X, with Asuka returning later on this month, and we now know why she's out due to her shoulder surgery. Question is why WWE didn't pull Asuka from the Women's Money in the Bank match last year when we knew she was going to be injured in the first place. Quite difficult to really give an answer to this one. Obviously, I couldn't tell you what WWE would be thinking at the time, but obviously I'm one that's always an advocate for health and safety first. If someone's got a niggling knock or got an injury, perhaps you wouldn't put them in that position. Maybe they would have said, well, we don't want to put Asuka in that position, but she wants to be in that position. Maybe she felt she could do the match and do it quite safely. Maybe a spot went a bit different to what was planned, and perhaps maybe that's what changed the game. And you know, we don't know the scenario for it, unfortunately, to see what side and what was the case in the story. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, as I said, I'm a health and safety guy. If she's got a niggling knock or an injury, I personally wouldn't have put her in the match or taken any form of risk. But obviously, we've been out without Asuka now for quite a while. I look forward to seeing how and when she returns to WWE. Like I say, she should be fit and raring to go anytime now. So whatever storyline WWE brings her back in, hopefully it's a strong one. She's been off our screens for a long time now. So, you know, absence makes the heart grow fonder. So definitely it's a good excuse to put her in a strong position when she returns. But that's all for me. Thank you for watching this week here on AskSCW. As always, thank you to everyone for your questions and everyone for watching. If it's your first time watching, then please subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed already and you've been watching regularly, subscribe right now. On the road to WrestleMania 38. Please like the video as well, share with a friend, drop a comment as well below. Also, if any of the topics been discussed on today's video, or if you want to add a question in for next week. Like I say, interaction with these videos is key. It really helps me grow on YouTube as well. And watch time is the key for 2022, trying to get to monetization, just a couple of 100 hours away, so we need your help to watch as many SCW videos as possible, and I'm going to help you with that as well by releasing a lot of content over the next 6 weeks, including videos that are already released right now. 5 things that WWE need to do between now and WrestleMania 38 is already on the channel. An Elimination Chamber review is also there as well. More videos will be dropping this week, including fancy booking once again, and I'm going to do some live Q&As. I'm even debating to do 2 per week between now and WrestleMania. If that's something you want to see, let me know in the comments below right now. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching as always. All the best. Have a great day. Thank you so much. You've been watching SCW here on YouTube. Enjoy the rest of your day. Oh, and please watch one of these videos on the side of the screen right now. Really appreciate it. All the best.